Saunders here at Recreate Your Relationship to Food, a podcast where we interview guest experts and we dive into their journey with food, health, nutrition, herbs, and through that conversation, there's many side tangents that happen, and we pull out all these little wisdoms and gems that you can apply to your life. So today's call was really fun, really fantastic. It was with Derek Fleming, the owner and founder of New Earth Organics, as well as Vital Essence. Derek Fleming is a master herbalist. He describes himself as a culinary artist, and I can definitely affirm to that based upon some of the creations that he's made that I've personally enjoyed. He's also a big wild food advocate, and he is a fantastic guy. He's a wonderful educator that's out there in the field, and it was a pleasure to have him on. And I know that listening today, you're going to get a lot of valuable insights that you can easily apply to your life. So have a listen, give it a share, subscribe, and keep up to date on all the new interviews that are coming, and enjoy what you're about to hear. All right. Welcome, Derek. Thanks for being on the call.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right, right on. First question, I want to ask you, what are you drinking? What do you got in that mug there?
Oh, it's a good question. Today I've got some chamomile tea going.
Nice.
Little mug. I'm a big fan of chamomile. It's like one of these underrated herbs that's super powerful antiviral. Most people think it's just like a sleepy time relaxing tea, which it is. But cold and flu season, it's a nice bitter tea. It's got like a slight sweetness to it. But really good for those cold and flus to keep them at bay.
Wow, cool. Yeah, great. I didn't know that. Good antiviral as well. And of course, you got a great message on your cup there.
Oh, that's right. Can you see that? I don't know if it...
lift it slightly higher. There you go. Make tea, not war.
There you go. That's what it's all about, right?
And that's what you're doing. You're making tea, not war. Awesome.
I'm doing daily.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anyways, love the work that you're doing, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this call also, huge fans and big support, and thanks for the love there. And I'm sure a lot of people are maybe new. We did a little bio, we did a little intro. So here you are. You've created New Earth Organics. You've just come up with a new company, Vital Essence. You've been studying, herbs and into the world of health, food, nutrition, everything. I'm sure it wasn't always this way. This is who you are now. Who were you? Like way back when? And like I say, go kind of as deep or as far or as little as you want. But yeah. What's your journey been like?
My secret alter ego is what you're diving for, right? No, just kidding. Like you mentioned, I've always kind of been interested in natural remedies. Grew up kind of in the traditional way on, I guess you could say, the standard North American diet, albeit a healthier version of that, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But grew up that way. And really, what drove me to where I am today, I think like a lot of us, we usually can have like a sick family member or some sort of illness ourselves. I find that in the healer realm or the natural health industry, a lot of us are pushed into this because, a sick family member, like I said, we're dealing with someone, friends, relatives. Those situations come up for those people, and I really truly believe, like, to get the robust health that we need, we have to take our health back into our own hands. We have to take it by the reins. So growing up on this standard North American diet didn't do so well for me. So I faced a lot of health challenges when I was younger. Always sick, always, ear infections. I had chronic tonsillitis. Thankfully, I never had them taken out because you ideally want to keep your body parts if you can.
Right.
Kind of a personal motto of mine.
That should be a T-shirt or put it on a mug or something, right?
Yeah, there you go, right? I had chronic tonsillitis, had problems, had terrible intestinal issues, which, is a common thing, over the last 30 years, let's say 40 years, like the whole irritable bowel IBS thing. It used to be like snicker joke about it. Now it's more commonplace. Like people are seriously dealing with this on a grand scale, and it affects so many people. So I was kind of one of the pioneers of that unfortunate movement of the IBS movement, among other things, though. And
it is an unfortunate movement.
Yeah, definitely. It's not fun times. Definitely not fun times.
Yeah.
But you start to realize that, hey, maybe it's what I'm putting in my system that's doing this to me. A light bulb kind of goes off. But even before that, kind of dealing with these problems, and again, it wasn't like I was hospitalized for them or anything, or even back then, this is like a long time ago now, 20 some years ago, let's say 25 years ago, 24 years ago, or whatever it would be. No, even more than that. But, it wasn't even properly diagnosed by doctors, no sort of ideas out there what was causing this. And then going through like severely traumatic incident when I was about 11, my father passed away, and left a single mom to raise three children was pretty tough emotionally for us
Yeah.
to bear. And it just really exacerbated all those issues. The relationship I had with food at that point,
Yeah.
what was not anywhere where it should have been. You're in survival mode for a couple years, and so that, and then my mom dealing with all this stress and heartache, ended up getting sick as well, and really sick.
Right.
Which, again, you feel helpless at a time, but I think a lot of us who are, I don't want to sound cliche, but in the healer industry or that healer approach, say, hey, maybe there can be a better way. So even like as a young, teenager, is always interested in natural remedies. Started to really have a love for plants, for earth medicine and things, but it was always kind of on the back burner until I was about 16. I finally was convinced, actually by my mother, who had taken her health back into her own hands, to visit an herbalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I went to 16 years old, and I was into heavy metal and rock and roll back then.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not now, but that was my main thing. Convinced to go to an herbalist, and I maybe shrugged it off at first, but I was still kind of interested, and she was getting some amazing results. So I went and had a consultation, and it was literally life changing. It was amazing. The little suggestions
Yeah.
started to make huge changes in my overall health and my outlook on life. And so by the time I was, let's say 2 years down the road, 18, my health started to really turn around, and I started to really take charge and things back into my own hands, and started to really give it, and started this new path of diving deeper into natural health and healing.
Yeah.
One of the unfortunate situations from like that standard North American diet and the whole vaccine world and all that traditional antibiotic medicine is it really threw out my endocrine system.
Right.
Hormones were off all over the place. And that was kind of one of my first gateways into the real power of herbs.
Right.
I start to use herbs, which I classify as food to me. That's part of my relationship with food, is learning that these herbs, these things that I can put in my body will help balance out my health and my endocrine system, and get me back on track. And when I started to realize that, it just kind of, caught fire from there and changed it right around. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's been pretty amazing. Then went the whole traditional school route. I don't know how much of my story you want to know, but
No, this is awesome. Keep going, and maybe so. Let's jump back to school. But I'm just going to jump in here and say, you had a lot of symptoms, which we know a lot of people in our society, both the kind of the mainstream, everyone, right, is dealing with symptoms, which to me are signs and signals of the body that like need attention. It's just the body speaking to you, going like, okay, here's a little area, and it's just trying to get your attention. And often, a lot of times, we aren't trained to think that way, and oftentimes, I have this saying like, just because it's chronic doesn't mean it's normal, or the way that it should be. So it sounds like, you, like many other people, had those signs, those symptoms, but fortunately, you were in a place where you had that guidance from your mother, who was getting results that steered you towards a practitioner, and things were able to turn around. And it sounds like at a really key pivotal, like influential stage, like pivotal in the sense that it wasn't allowed to progress, right? Because that's when you really get into chronic disease. So many years of just ignoring those signs and those signals and those symptoms, then things really truly start developing. And also influential because you and I are about the same age, and I can relate to your story and your experience of, I mean, you get those results. I mean, especially at that time, 16, 17, 18. And you're also at that time really being faced with that question internally and also externally. Okay, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? How do I want to contribute? And great that you had that experience at that time, and maybe that's a great lead into then schooling. It sounds like it was a huge part of you making the choice you did.
Definitely. I mean, it's so pivotal, like you say, and I mean, things can compound so quickly on itself. But it breaks my heart to see people still today, like, in 2017, dealing with things like IBS when we know so much now about things like that, or any sort of chronic health issue. Like, I was a mess for a while. Obviously the emotional trauma spurred that on for me. But as a young boy, really young teenager, I was, put on medication for blood pressure. I gained a massive amount of weight, really unhealthy in that regard. And, the thing is these small changes can make these huge benefits. So when you look at people nowadays that are facing that, even though they've maybe been through, this, like the standard North American diet and all this stuff, these little changes can make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
It really is my passion to help people and plant that seed. Let's say, hey, it's that relationship with the environment, your food, your thoughts, your activities that can make such a huge difference.
Totally. And and another thing that needs to be acknowledged is the fact that you took action, because I know as a herbalist as well that you can present all the facts. Like you say, there's so many people that are suffering with all these different conditions, and you can present, okay, here's a solution, here's an alternative. I was speaking with someone the other day, a practitioner, and they're working with a client. I can't remember what condition it was they have, but it's something serious, right? It's like, here's a lifelong disease that they've had that definitely impairs their quality of life. And the solution was, nightshades are a big part of this. You actually need, for a certain amount of time, you need to eliminate tomatoes, and you will feel better. And this woman wouldn't do it. She's like, no, I'm not. She's like, I can't not eat tomatoes. And just like turn the other way. So
it's such an interesting psychology, hey, when you have to give things up. And I tell people that all the time. It's like, you might have to eliminate something from your diet, but it doesn't mean forever.
Yeah.
So say you're, the scary one is giving up sugar or giving up flour, right? Like flour products for people at the beginning can be such a huge thing to let go of.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't have to be forever, and you can rekindle that relationship in a healthier way. But totally. that abstinence period, where you're abstaining from these things, is scary at first for people, because food also is this security blanket and routine of your life. This woman, not to go into her details, but eating tomatoes, that might be part of her ritual. Who she is might be a thing that she just identifies with.
Yeah, family bond or whatever it is, right? Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, no, it's huge.
It's amazing. You don't really get again, modern medicine is fantastic in some ways not so great. Not to pick on them, but also you go to your doctor, and there is a different paradigm shift, or a paradigm shift, I should say. Now you find some, GPs, medical doctors, that will start to embrace this idea of, hey, it's food that could be causing your problem. These are things you need to let go of in your diet.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is that's been known for thousands and thousands of years. Like, excuse me, that's one of the foundational bases for Ayurveda, is they believe that it's what you put into your body that is what's causing your diseases.
Right.
Either what you put in or what you don't put in. On the flip side of that, but it's like intimately connected and directly connected. What you put into your body is what's causing your disalignment in health. So
I remember David Wolf, seeing him years ago giving a lecture, and kind of that tongue in cheek, he was saying like, oh yeah, doctors, believe it has nothing to do with food or whatever you eat, but here, put this in your mouth, eat this, take these pills.
Yeah, totally, right? And that's exactly true. It's just a different philosophy. And again, there's a time and place for all that stuff. I'm one of those people that's like, I don't believe in wrong ways and right ways. I think there just is. I like the whole no straight lines in nature type of philosophy.
Yeah.
But mostly so, and ideally, getting back to our roots in humanity and how we survived for thousands of years of these health problems is so, so important. And we might not get those answers from traditional medical channels. But that first step for people, and not even the first step, sometimes down the road, you've been into natural health things for a while, but now you have to give up, you've switched all your sugar content over to some healthy natural sweetener, right. But it still might not be serving you.
Right.
It still can be difficult even when you're far in the game, so to speak. So it's an interesting topic for sure, the psychology behind that.
Yeah.
Especially when it relates to food and lifestyle.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm thinking of some more tangents there we could go off, but let's come back to schooling and keep going with your journey there. So
the journey got interesting. So I decided to go to university and get an education there. More, let's say, out of interest. I was interested in it. It's not like it was the right place for me.
Yeah.
I did finish my schooling there, and it just about killed me in some ways.
Right.
But the whole time I was doing that, what I really wanted to do was study herbs more in a clinical sense and, just in that herbology sense. And so I never gave up learning. I think it is a lifetime learning process, and it's definitely a lifestyle shift when you're into herbs and more earth medicine, let's say. But I went to university and just, made it through, thankfully. So happy to get out of there. And then upon graduating, was pretty much, right away I started formally studying herbs.
Right.
And again, that's a huge, and I can't recommend that enough to people. If you're even interested in some little facet of natural health and herbology and stuff, just start reading, because I get that question a lot. Like, which school should I go to? What should I do? How did you like this? How did you like that? And really, there's so many opinions out there and so many interpretations of old herbal ways and herbal tradition, Eastern and Western standpoints, that I think you're best, not that you're asking my opinion on this, but I think you're best just to dive into it and just start somewhere.
Totally, yeah.
Maybe be humble about it and not, I know a lot of people sometimes get self-righteous about certain things they read in fad movements and things like that, and that's okay too. Everyone's got their path they're going down, but just start reading and investigating. And again, these little changes can make such huge benefits. Even if it's like a liter of water when you wake up in the morning, that can make a big difference for how your day is switched on and turned on.
Yeah, no, I like your suggestions about how to get into herbs, because early in my path, like, I'd actually chosen nutrition. Okay, and never envisioned like, I'm going to be a nutritionist. But going through nutrition school, that was kind of, what you're presented with. All right, you go to nutrition school, you're going to become a nutritionist. And I remember other friends, Yarrow and many other people and coworkers and such that were studying herbology, and I always felt a little like kind of intimidated by it. Like you say, I mean, there's just so much information, and there's so many different traditions, right? Is it going to be Western herbs? Is it going to be Ayurvedic herbs, Chinese herbs? I mean, to learn and study Chinese herbs, right? Like, like people go to school for 8 years for that. And I always felt like, oh, okay, it's just not my thing. I'm not even going to go there. Like, I'm just going to focus on food. Mm-hmm. And I love your advice, which is kind of what I did, which is actually, I just dropped all that. It's like, you know what? I can start learning. I can start just reading about one or two. And I don't call myself an expert about herbs. I'm not. I look to many other people who have put in that time and that wisdom. But, I'm sure many people can relate to me in the sense that, learning one herb at a time, you can really empower yourself without, quote unquote, being an expert or, putting in the 4 or 8 years at school. And, I think you're speaking to this as well. Like that's how herbs were learned and used. And it's just a part of who we are as a people. And I love how you say, like, let's start thinking about them as foods, like a food group, just adding them in every day.
Definitely. And like, if you look at history, a lot of the, traditional cultural recipes that were created, had a lot of these common medicinal herbs, culinary tonic herbs, let's say, in them, which we haven't really had or been exposed to as much here in North America.
Yeah.
We don't have these traditional recipes that have been passed down. When people immigrate, they'll take these recipes, and that's why we have things like even as simple as spaghetti with basil and oregano to more elaborate Chinese soups and things like that. But we're kind of at a excuse me, a handicap a little bit, where we have to maybe dig a bit deeper, in a sense, and it might only be as soon, like as close back as your immediate ancestors, what country you came from and what was traditionally eaten there. You might find a lot of answers just in that certain recipes. Like I know kvass, for example, which again isn't an herb, but it's a fermented elixir, which is drunk a lot in countries like Russia, for example. That's traditional medicine, but it's traditional. Sorry, it's contemporary medicine, but it's traditional food to those people.
Yeah.
So sometimes these answers can be so much easier than people think in this path down, recreating this relationship with food and embracing more of the herbal aspect and the fungi kingdom aspect, and that can be a simple thing to do.
Yeah.
But again, that's one recommendation I have for people, is to start with those culinary herbs, like you're saying.
Right.
It's such an easy starting point, and master one herb. Get a love for cinnamon. Start adding it, and playing with it and embracing it, because these simple herbs that lots of us have lying in our cupboards at home can be so powerful, so amazing. We take it for granted.
Right. And actually, to that point, I would suggest, of all those like culinary herbs you might have in your kitchen, the oregano, the basil, the cinnamon, the turmeric, I would really, I grew up, my family didn't use herbs and spices. Like, we might have had a little jar of oregano that just kind of sat there for years. We might be speaking the wrong crowd, but, even if it's you or your folks or your relatives or whatever, those common herbs, like, they are powerful. They just need to be a high quality. So any herbs that you've had sitting in those little like plastic vials, that bought from, the regular grocery store that's been there for 5 years, honestly, like, get rid of it, go get something real high quality. The flavor's there, the smell's there, and of course that means the medicine is there.
Great point. And I mean, there's no better mecca for this, for this getting high quality herbs than the light cellar, your store. Wow. So local people can go down and pick. Well, it's true though. I mean, like, you've never had cinnamon until you've had cinnamon from the light cellar, or and it's a good point, because a lot of these things do sit around, and you're not going to get the full activity or the full relationship made until you get high quality offerings that really give you that full expression of that herb. So yeah.
Cool. And so, let's keep going down that vein. So we talked about, kind of exploring the culinary herbs, adding those in, which are literally probably already a part of someone's life on an everyday basis. So, reading the books, learning about them. I mean, turmeric is it's every day you see another article that someone's sharing about turmeric. Great place to start. Where would be the next thing in terms of, okay, explore the world of culinary herbs. Now I'm going to explore the world of...
Well, there's two different angles I like to take with that. So obviously, I'm extremely passionate about medicinal mushrooms and the fungi kingdom. Literally the greatest ally for the human race right now. In modern day times, there's no better ally that I can think of that's pretty much good for anybody at any time with that wide activity of use. Obviously, there's going to be situations in there where not everything is good for everybody, but taking a step back. Yeah, I mean, powerful. Sorry, go ahead.
And just in a broad context, I always like to remind people, of the fungi kingdom, like penicillin, that's a fungus, right? Like, totally. So of course there's reishi and chaga and shiitake and all these things, but there's the big, broad, like, fungi kingdom, and how you're mentioning this is one of our number one allies. Of right now and of the past for humans. It's so absolutely true. And I love the saying, I believe it was Michael Pollan that said, people always say that, a dog is man's best friend, but he challenges that he thinks, in fact, it is Saccharomyces cerevisiae is man's best friend. Of course, the yeast that we use to brew our beer and, buys our bread, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Also in the fungi kingdom. So yeah.
Great point. And speaking of that, like, one of those avenues, so medicinal mushrooms are amazing, but even to make it, a bit easier for people on where to start, there's a philosophy, it's not mine, or theory, a practice, you could say, that I teach a lot. I'm very passionate about. It's something that I practice myself, but it's the whole idea and practice of something called seasonal attunement, which is eating in harmony with the seasons, trying to live in harmony with nature. When you start dialing up how important that is, you find people like Hippocrates to in Ayurveda, Charaka, in the Samhita text talks about how literally all diseases begin at the junction of the seasons. It's the season change that where diseases stem from. And it's that idea that we're maybe eating or taking the improper things at the wrong time of year. And so a really easy blueprint for people is this seasonal eating approach. And you can find lots of info on the internet now. Like, it's getting more popular. I obviously teach courses in it. All my public lectures and talks are always going to have that angle to it. And I find that it's an easier approach because it's something that resonates with everybody.
Yeah.
The blueprint in terms of what we should do and what we should take has already been worked out for us. And I don't mean that by a person. I mean that by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
So literally, it's looking around in your environment. What is Mother Nature giving you at that time of the year? Every time you find some correlation, you realize, hey, this is exactly what I should be having at this time of year is what's available.
Right.
We live in this modern convenience world where we get strawberries like 24/7 at Safeway and watermelon in crazy times of the year because of globalization. And, there's all debates about that. Should we have that? Should we not? But I think like a generally mostly so kind of idea and approach to diet, herbs, lifestyle, researching is look at the season you're in and, hey, what are some foods I can eat that would be amazing for me? What are some herbs I can take that would be amazing for me at this time of year?
Right.
And when you do that properly, and again, it kind of narrows it down, that big, huge scope of herbs, like, hey, where do I go?
Right.
Someone like aimlessly thinking, medicinal mushrooms, again, is a huge topic.
Yeah.
But if we can dial that up a little bit more finite and a little bit of a narrower approach, we can kind of help people and guide them, and you can guide yourself, obviously, but down this path of, hey, these are appropriate herbs at this time.
Right.
This is what I'm going to start with learning. And then next season, you get a whole new learning experience.
Yeah.
A whole new relationship with the foods of that season and growing from there. And I find that it is the easiest, although it seems foreign at first because we're not taught this, this knowledge humans have gained and had for over 10,000 years. It always blows my mind how many thousands of years it actually took to dial it up as well as it is. But I still find that even though it's foreign sounding at first, it's such an easy segue and such an easy thing to get people to initially embrace. And even if you're deep into herbs, you've been studying for, I know fellow herbalists that have been studying herbs for 10 years, but still that seasonal approach to them is still forgotten, still left out.
Yeah.
And again, it's not the end all be all. It's a mostly so approach, no straight lines in nature.
Yeah.
But if you're looking, hey, like we're in winter season right now as we record this, might not be the best time for detoxification in terms of green smoothies and those types of foods. That time is coming, as we approach spring. But hey, if you're dealing with a health problem yourself, or friends or family, or you just want to research things, start looking at what are seasonally appropriate, what herbs, what foods.
Right.
Embrace that, and you're going to notice huge benefits right away, and that's just going to fuel that passion more. And the other big obstacle I find is when someone's researching herbs and learning about herbs, which is a great thing. They want to share that with people so passionately sometimes, and that's fantastic. But I'm sure all of us can maybe attest to this in our past. We've researched some herb we're so passionate about. We say, hey, you got to take this and try this out. It's fantastic to a friend or someone. They take it, they're like, oh, I didn't notice anything, did nothing for me, and it maybe shuts their mind a little bit more to the idea of herbs. But hey, you can maybe choose something that you're passionate about and this season it and tell people about it or promote it.
Right.
That open up the floodgates of their mind, be like, wow, I do feel better, I do feel more robust about life. And so, when we're talking about like these initial paths, like you were asking, obviously herbs, tonic herbs, medicinal mushrooms, but I think seasonal eating for me, to back it up is one of the foundational things that I like to share and like to promote.
Yeah, that's cool. No, it's great. And I love it for, speak to that on 2 points, the learning as well as like the efficacy and when you're sharing with others, like, so if there's a seasonal food that's out there during the winter, to share that with someone, it's going to have more of an effect on them in that most appropriate season. That's great. I love that. And also I love the fact of learning, because how it helps narrow, right? So when you're approaching the field of herbs or you're approaching the field of mushrooms and you want to get into it, you're excited, and it just seems so bloody vast, right? Where to start, and the seasons can really help narrow things down. So I've had my approach for the last several years now is like, okay, and you could break down however you want to, but for me it's like, okay, every summer I'm going to learn 3 new mushrooms. And then every fall, nice. Right, different mushrooms come out. Okay, I'm going to learn 2 new ones. So you could break it into seasons, and it could be everything. Okay, every spring I'm going to learn a new plant, a new herb. Every summer I'm going to learn a new plant, a new herb. Winter, etc. And that makes it manageable. And especially when it is, the seasonal foods, like you say, ties into like wild foods, like what's around you. Begin to learn what are the foods in your immediate, like I like to say, your foodscape, like go out and engage it, and then just pick 1 or 2 things. Like guaranteed there's 100 out there, but start with that one, and give yourself something easy and manageable per year, per season, that you can feel like, all right, yes, like nailed it. I learned about dandelions this spring season. Nice. And I learned about, and very quickly what I found is like, okay, cool, like I'm on to the next. So even though I'd set my bar like, okay, 1 per season, very easily I'd learn 2 or 3, and maybe that doesn't sound like that much, and it depends on your path. I mean, if you want to be a professional and an expert, and then a lot more deeper immersive study is required. But for the average person, we can't learn everything, can't learn it all. But if you imagine you learn 4 things a year, in 10 years, you have enough knowledge. You could be leading wild food walks, right? In that sense.
Building that repertoire, for sure. For sure. I've even read, whether this is completely true or not, but traditional doctor programs in India, learning doctors, are studying Ayurveda, their whole program or their whole term, they'll only embrace about 10 different herbs.
Wow. That
whole program, but they're learning them in such a deep manner. It's just fascinating and mind-blowing, the taste, the characteristics, everything about it. So, like you're saying, 1 per season, some people are like, oh, I just want to digest knowledge, but I think that's actually a very smart approach. I do the same every season. I'll kind of brush up, brush up on my seasonal herbs. But when it becomes, foraging time, I bust out all my books. I cross-reference them all. I look and say, hey, what's something new I can find this year? What can I do with this? How can I share this with people type of idea? Yeah. I think that's a great approach. That's great insight.
No, good. And even as I'm hearing you saying it, for someone like yourself who has dove deep, who has learned so much, I like the idea of like seasonal brushing up, as well as the fact is, I think, even when you're rushed through herbal school, right? I'm just like, okay, you gotta learn all these things and this and that, like to go back and to go deep and to go with 1 plant, you can learn so much just from that 1 plant, and the process of getting to know 1 plant that will then extend to so many others. So really taking that time.
Definitely. It's such a healthy relationship that you gain with that plant, but then food in general, right? Because like all this knowledge, and I think that's like the point of what we're talking about today, is getting that deeper relationship with food again, and that recreating that relationship with food, which I know you talk a lot about and teach about. But this just helps fuel that passion more. Yeah. That, hey, we learn, what are these seasonal recipes that now I can incorporate these herbs into, or maybe have been since the beginning of time, so to speak. And I think it's just a very, very healthy path to go down. It's, a personal path of mine. That's what I try to do. So if anyone listening or watching today can gain something from this, I think that's a very powerful insight.
Cool.
Shared, yeah.
Yeah, we're right on. Well, how about we leave it there, and people can find you at newearthorganics.com, correct?
newearthorganicscanada.com.
Canada, yeah.
And or vitalessenceherbs.com.
Right on.
Best way to connect with me and kind of what we're doing is usually through Instagram. So you can find me at New Earth Organics. So that's plural. Twitter is at New Earth Organic. So not plural on that one, but usually Instagram is the best. That's the one social media that I tend to manage myself, keep it going. I find it's an interesting and amazing medium for sharing ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely connect with us through that. Give us a follow if you're interested in learning more. You can find out my upcoming talks. And
cool. Yeah, I know you have Great posts always on Instagram, and that will keep anyone following you in the loop and up to date on your events, which are also super awesome, super informative. We love to host you at the Light Cellar whenever we can, and I know you're also speaking around town. And so thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, good to see you again.
Okay, right on. We'll do this again sometime. So stay tuned to this podcast. We're gonna have Derek on again soon. All right.
Be well.